houses of Congress passed the annual defense bill with veto-proof majorities. If President Trump takes the rather ridiculous step of vetoing a pay raise for our troops in order to defend the honor of dead Confederate traitors or whatever other contrived grounds he comes up with, Congress must override that veto. On Friday, both chambers of Congress also passed a one-week continuing resolution, giving us until the end of this week to finish an omnibus appropriations bill to fund the government. As usual, the appropriations bill will include several important pieces of related legislation. One that doesn't get enough attention is a bipartisan energy bill. Earlier this year, during the debate over the energy bill, Senate Democrats insisted that a provision to reduce HFCs, a very harmful greenhouse gas that is driving our climate change problem, must be included in the bill. Unfortunately, we had to hold up the bill until bipartisan agreement could be reached on this critical provision, which would be the single biggest victory in the fight against climate change to pass this body in a decade. Today, I am very happy to report that we have made very good progress towards an agreement on HFC reduction. We are about to get it done, and that's one of the biggest victories to fight global warming in a very long time. I want to thank Senators Carper, Kennedy, and Barrasso. They've worked very diligently and very hard to craft a compromise. And finally, as we all know, it's imperative we pass another round of emergency federal relief from the continued impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, the bipartisan group of senators who have been diligently working towards an agreement will announce the results of their work, a package of over $900 billion that includes an agreement on assistance to state and local government. Notably, there is no agreement on corporate immunity. We look forward to reviewing their work. Democrats remain 100% committed to getting another round of emergency relief to the American people before the end of the year, and in a robust, bold way, because America needs it so badly. Now, a year that was full of bad news for the country is coming to an end with some very good news. Over the past 8 to 9 months, American scientists, biochemists, and researchers rushed to produce a safe and effective vaccine to the COVID-19 pandemic, and they've succeeded in extraordinary fashion. We don't have just one, but several candidates for a vaccine, each of which has shown to be 90% effective in clinical trials. One of those vaccines has been authorized by the FDA for emergency use. And as we speak, an assembly line of workers in masks, gloves, and face shields are pulling doses out of the freezer, loading them into cold storage pallets and onto trucks to be shipped to states across the country. The discovery of a COVID-19 vaccine within the time frame of a calendar year is a crowning scientific achievement of the 21st century. It should bring not only a feeling of relief to the country, indeed to the entire world, but also deep admiration and pride for America's scientists and our medical workers. I remember in the early days of the pandemic, going to the window of our Brooklyn apartment each night to applaud our frontline workers. The whoops, claps, and metallic clang of pots and pans echoed for miles. Our medical researchers, as well as thousands of Americans who selflessly volunteered for clinical trials, deserve the same national expression of gratitude. We can show our gratitude here in Congress by communicating clearly that the COVID vaccine 19 is safe, effective, and that every American should inoculate themselves when it becomes available. Skepticism about vaccines was already too high before the pandemic. Several polls have shown it to be an alarming concern with respect to the COVID-19 vaccine. So it's an absolute disgrace that the Republican majority on the Homeland Security Committee has invited a prominent skeptic of the COVID-19 vaccine to deliver testimony in a hearing this week. Public figures at all levels should be building up confidence in a vaccine, not giving a platform to those who undermine it. At the moment, The vaccine is being distributed to medical personnel, doctors, nurses, frontline workers, and the most vulnerable populations. I myself will take the vaccine as soon as it is appropriate and recommended. I will not skip the line, but make no mistake. We should all lead by example, commit to taking the vaccine, and tell our constituents to take it as well. The CDC in our states will continue to advise which populations should be inoculated based on availability, and we will follow that guidance. Now, one other note. Today, members of the Electoral College are gathering in all 50 states and the District of Columbia to formally select Joe Biden as the next president of the United States of America. Typically, the meeting of the Electoral College is merely a formality. The presidential election took place over a month ago. The result is not in doubt. In almost any other year, both major parties would have fully and publicly accepted the will of the American people by now, the peaceful passing of the torch, a hallmark of our grand democracy. But this year, it seems as if Joe Biden has had to be declared the winner of the presidential election again and again and again. And still, our Republican colleagues have not fully come to grips with that reality. Just how many times does President Trump have to lose before rank-and-file Republicans, before most senators, acknowledge that Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States? Last week, more than 100 members, Republican members of the House of Representatives, signed their names to a lawsuit that would invalidate the results of the election in 4 swing states. For any serious person, much less a member of the United States Congress, to sign their name to such an anti-democratic document is beyond shameful. To my knowledge, the Republican leader of the Senate still has not referred to Joe Biden as president-elect. Will he change his tune now that the Electoral College has once again confirmed his victory? Will the rest of my Republican Senate colleagues do the same? After no evidence of widespread voter fraud was found in the country, after state election officials corroborated the accuracy of the results in every state in the country, after the Trump campaign's legal team racked up an astonishing win-loss record of 1-59, after the Supreme Court summarily dismissed 2 ludicrous efforts by Republicans to invalidate the results in swing states, will the Republican Party in Congress, here in the Senate, finally acknowledge the results of an election that was determined over a month ago? Just how long are Republicans going to keep up this charade, which has become a national embarrassment? Even now, the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee is planning to hold a hearing this week about what he calls, quote, election irregularities. Look, our Republican colleagues don't have to like the results of the election, but they have a solemn responsibility to accept them. They have a duty to confer legitimacy on them. Instead, for the past month, they have given President Trump the space to promote wild conspiracy theories about election fraud and poison Americans' faith in our democracy. As the Electoral College cast the majority of its votes for Joe Biden, the same number of votes that President Trump called a landslide 4 years ago, our Republican colleagues must do now what they should have done a month ago: accept the legitimacy of Joe Biden's election to the presidency of the United States. I yield the floor.
Under the previous order, the leadership time is reserved.